Morning, everyone in the chat. Okay. Well, people are trickling in, but we'll just get started so we can get to our presentation, which I know a lot of people are very excited about learning. Today we have Sandeep and Bill who will be presenting for us about the Brown Act and ADA compliance. We're very happy to have them. As usual, if you guys have questions, feel free to raise your hand, type it in the chat. You can also unmute and ask. Sandeep and Bill already agreed that that was totally acceptable. Well, we will have Q&A at the very end, so if you feel more comfortable waiting to gather your thoughts and your questions till the very end, you can do that as well. But we told them they have as much time as they want for today. This is an important topic that everyone requested, and so we want to make sure that we get to all of the information, everyone's questions. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them to start their presentation and introduce themselves, and I will be back here learning along with the rest of you. Very excited. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, Lydia and Stephanie, for inviting us. And yeah, my name is Sandeep. I'm with the Planetaria Digital Deployment, and I have with me my colleague Bill, who's head of our part of our support team and one of our AD experts. So we put together a short presentation for all of you. And again, as Lydia said, feel free to ask questions, and we'll be happy to answer as we go along, or we can also do that at the end. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm Sandeep, and I have Bill with me. These are my contact details below, but we'll share this deck with you. Lydia will probably send it over to you after the presentation. So what we wanted to cover today was a few things. One is talk about ADA. Again, it's a very broad topic, but we wanted to focus more on the digital accessibility part of it, especially for Title II, and then talk about Brown Act compliance, again, from a perspective of the digital or the website perspective, and also share with you some tools, some resources, and talk about our experience in doing some of this stuff. We'll try not to sell, but just try to be as informative as we can. So ADA. So ADA is actually a civil rights law which was enacted back in 1990. So it's been around for a while. It's gone through a few changes, and we'll talk about some of those in a bit. And it has 4 or 5 different titles. Title II specifically applies to state and local governments, so all of us here, and it includes all programs, services, and all kinds of communications that you have with your audience, with your stakeholders and whoever you deal with. It also includes physical facilities and digital spaces, but again, we'll focus more on the digital aspects. So it covers digital spaces like websites, mobile apps, any electronic documents that you share with the audience, and so on. And the purpose here is digital accessibility ensures that the people with visual, auditory, motor, or cognitive disabilities can access your government information. So it's really, the intent is very important to understand. So the intent is really, it's all kinds of disabilities. It's not just, visual, it's also auditory, motor, which means, somebody who's not able to, use the mouse, somebody who's not able to see the contrast well on the screen, or, can get confused if there's so much information there, and wants it to be more organized, and so on. And ADA is no longer optional. It is now a legal obligation, and I'll show you some of the recent, announcements that have happened there. And again, you guys know that it can lead to, DOJ enforcements if it's not done, and more importantly, reputational damage. So what is digital accessibility? So digital accessibility means that people with disabilities can still perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the digital content. So they can do it in the same way, or they can get the same information that somebody who doesn't have a disability does. And when we say websites, let's go a bit further. So what it means is it's the PDFs that you put on the website, all kinds of documents that you put there, videos, forms, any applications, or any online services that you put up there have to be ADA, have to be accessible to people with disabilities. And again, we talked about this earlier. Disabilities include, not just blindness, it could be low vision, it could be hearing, it could be mobility challenges and cognitive limitations. So what it means really is that people with these disabilities should be able to participate in your services and benefit from them in exactly the same way as somebody who's not. So these could be paying bills, submitting permits, attending meetings, and so on. And what's most important is that, because it's so deeply ingrained, it's very important to make sure that it's part of the content that you create, and it's part of the design that you have for your website and for your apps and for your online presence, and not really something which is a patchwork or an afterthought. Um, Going further into it, so this is a rule which was announced early last year, and by the as a federal rule that any organization, state or local, is covered by this. And what it says is that this applies to a web content or mobile app that a state or local government provides or makes available. Um, and they set some dates. So the earliest one is April 2026 for larger organizations, and for the smaller ones, you have one more year to comply. And what this says is that the content should comply with WCAG 2.1 level AA. Again, I'll start getting into more technical details here, but I'll explain to you what WCAG 2.1 AA means. That is the standard that has been set. So you need to make sure that you're familiar with what WCAG 2.1 AA. In the previous, some of you may have heard of Section 508. Section 508 was a California standard that was slightly lower. It was WCAG 2.0 AA standards, but now what the federal has mandated is WCAG 2.1 AA. There's also a 2.2 standard, so they have not mandated that, so you don't need to worry about it. There's also AAA standards, again, much more stringent, but you don't need to worry about it. So what you need to keep in mind is it's 2.1 AA. So WCAG really stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's a framework, globally accepted framework, which and it's not just in US, it's international. And it has three levels: A, double A, and triple A. And double A is the minimum that has been recommended for public agencies. So it has four main principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So what it means is that it should be easy to perceive the information that you want to share. So these could be, for example, alternate text for images. So when you add an image on your website, if somebody can't see it, they should be able, their screen reader should be able to tell them what that image is. So, and the way it happens is when you add an image, there is a alternate text which is supposed to describe the image. So you need to add that to make sure somebody who can't see it can still know what you're trying to perceive. They can perceive what you're trying to say. Same thing with audio. If there is no for people with disabilities, there should be a transcript so that they can read it and know what that video is about. Operable is applies to people who, let's say, can't use their mouse, their keypad. I mean, they're reliant on the keypad and they can't use the mouse, so they should be able to easily navigate the website without having to rely on being able to use a mouse, and easily skip links and so on. Understandable is where it should be easy to, so people with cognitive disability should still be able to see. It should be a consistent navigation across the site. There should be clear labels, very important. For example, we are very used to seeing forms where you have a field which has a pre-filled with, let's say, name, and as a visually it's a name field, or it's a phone number field, or it's an email field. But for somebody with disability, they may not know it. So there have to be explicit labels to say that this field is your name field, and you need to enter your name here, or you need to enter your email here, and so on. So those labels are very, very important from a ADA perspective. And again, robust, most of the one thing to clearly understand here is that uh, when we are talking about websites being ADA, you don't necessarily need to add screen readers to it, right? I mean, some people misunderstand it and think that the site needs to have a screen reader, so when somebody comes there, the site starts reading itself. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is make sure that people who have these disabilities, and they will probably already have these screen readers. So what you need to do is make sure your site is compatible with the screen readers. So that's what is more important, not really adding those screen readers, but making sure that you follow the best practices and make it compatible with the screen readers that they have and they're using for all their website browsing and so on. One important aspect here is testing. Again, there are a lot of tools available, but again, unfortunately, even in this age, we do not have one single tool that can uh, check a site for fully WCAG 2.1 standards. There are many tools, but again, um, even put together, they still fall short. So manual screen reader checks are really important here. And it's important to understand that accessibility is not a one-time exercise. It's an ongoing thing. As you update your site, as you add more content, it has to remain ADA compliant. Uh, and that's important to keep in mind. Any questions so far? Oops. So ADA, WCAG AA standards have 8 categories. Okay, so I'm now going a bit deeper into what it means. There is navigation, so it's important that your site has consistent navigation, and more importantly, if you keep in mind people who are using just the keyboard to navigate your site, or those who are just using a screen reader to read your site, just imagine from what you don't want them to do is every page they go, it first reads the 50 things in your navigation and then starts reading the content, right? So I would say it's very it's not easy for them if that happens. So there has to be an easy way for them to skip the navigation and straight away go to the content. Visually, we know that this is where the navigation is, and our eyes straight away go to the content. But somebody who's reading a screen reader doesn't see that. So they need to have an ability to jump from the navigation straight to the content. So those are things which are very important from an ADA perspective. Uh, uh, ARIA are HTML tags. Again, these are cemented tags which you and I don't see on a website, but these are tags which need to be added to the website to make sure that screen readers can read it. So, for example, if you have a field, if you have, let's say, a search box, for example, somebody who can't see it will not know that this is a search box unless there's a label. And again, you and me as users don't want to see that label. So which is why what has been defined is area labels, which are labels which are hidden for the visual eye, but the screen readers can read them. So it's kind of you have visual cues for somebody who can see, and you have area labels for those who can't see but have a screen reader which can read. So those are really smart way to make sure that you make your site ADA compliant for screen readers, but at the same time don't have you still have a visually pleasing site where you don't have labels all over the place, but you have visual cues. Again, names and labels, very important. These are for images. Images need to have alternate text so screen readers can read what these images are, what you want to convey. Again, if it's a decorative image, that's fine. You can just say it's just a scenery, or it's just an icon for a home, or an icon for a PDF file or whatever. So there are two types of images. There's decorative, and then there is the real ones which need to convey an information. So if, let's say, it is an announcement and then it has a date on it, that's very important to make sure that that date is part of the alternate text. So somebody can't see it, the image, they can still read what it's supposed to convey. Contrast ratio is very important, because a lot of and one very easy way to check this is, if you remember, some of you probably still have projectors in your offices. When something gets projected, you can't see it properly. And if you can't see well on a projector, that means it's a contrast issue. So those it's very important to make sure that proper contrasts are followed. Again, there are standards, there are guidelines as to what should be the minimum ratio. I think it's 4.5, a minimum ratio between the colors, the foreground and the background colors. So very important to make sure, and this is also important to keep in mind when you're designing. Let's say some of you are going through a redesign process. Maybe you're rebranding. Maybe you're wanting to have a new logo for your organization. Very important to make sure you don't select something like a silver color or something for a logo which does not go well on a white background. So important to make sure that colors are selected so that they can easily be seen and contrasted with others. Tables, again, very important here. We all add tables to our websites for conveying information. One of the most popular things, or lists. Again, visually, we can see a table. You can see the lines. you can see that this row has to be read. This is a row, this is a column, and you read a row this way, you read a column this way. But just think about those who can't see it that way. So we need to have ways in which you can tell the screen reader that now you're entering a table. So reading a table is different than reading a paragraph. You read it differently. So again, the content has to be set in such a way that screen readers know that what's a row, what's a heading, what's a column, and so on. Um, Audio and video, again, video is very important to make sure they have subtitles. So people who can't, again, which is getting more and more common, but that's, soon going to be mandated. So it's not just, good to have, it's going to be compulsory to make sure your videos have those subtitles. And so those who can't see it can at least read. And again, internationalization, localization, magnification. Again, these are all, some of these are technical things to make sure that when a page loads, the screen reader should be told what language it is in, right? Again, we all assume it's English. We all, visually looking at it, you can figure out what language it is. But a screen reader has to be told what language the page is. And again, some of these things are very easy to do from a technical perspective, but I'm just listing it out here to make sure that you're aware that these are things. And if you are talking to somebody, one of your vendors, you need to, these are things good to know. You know what is it that it takes to make sure the site is ADA compliant. And again, there are some best practices. So overall, as part of 2.8 AA standards, there are 8 categories which are listed here, and there are around 55 different things which fall into these 8 categories. So there are 55 parameters which have been set. So what we need to make sure is that every page on your site, every document on your site meets these 55 different parameters. And again, some of them may not be applicable, but if they are, they need to pass all these. And then the last category is the best practices, which don't really follow any of these, but there are some best practices that should be followed for every page.
I had a question, Sandy.
Yes, please.
So, because a lot of us run social media pages,
Mhm.
what is like, not all of this is going to apply for a social media page always,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what are some like just like the simplest like couple maybe best practices we could do for just, like captions on videos and photos and things like that?
Yeah, so captions, are really important when you post those. If you post a video, make sure it has, subtitles or captions there. So those are 2 important things. And again, the good and the bad of social media is that the good thing is the owners, if you're using a social media channel, it is for the social media platform to make sure it's ADA compliant, right? So the ownership is on them. But again, so that's a good part. But again, when you add something there, if it is, if it's a video, you need to make sure it has that, the captions. If it's an image, make sure you add a caption behind it, or it is, try and not have the image only have that information. So for example, a classic example is if there's a campaign, there's an event, and there's a, let's say it's on the 5th of August. So if you have an image which says 5th August, that's not really a good practice. I mean, you can have that, but make sure that your content also says the same thing so that somebody who can't read it or who can't see the image can still know that the event is on 5th of August. So make sure whatever is in the image is also in your post that you put there. Okay. So moving on, accessibility of documents and media. Again, all public-facing documents should be tagged, should be readable so that they're readable. Meeting materials. Again, one of the problems with PDFs is that PDFs generally, again, it takes an extra effort to make sure the PDF is ADA compliant. The good thing there is some of the tools that are used to make PDFs, like Adobe Acrobat Pro, they come with the ADA tool widget within it. So they come with those tools which you again it should enable, and they can help you make your sites ADA, make your PDFs ADA compliant. But again, by definition, PDFs are not that easy to read, and you probably may have experience. If you have some PDF, you try to read on your phone, it's very difficult. You need to keep zooming in and zooming out to read it. So by definition, PDFs are not really mobile responsive. So as a best practice, we always recommend our clients to move away from PDFs to HTML. HTML is just a basic page. So whatever is there on a PDF, wherever possible, it should be moved out into an HTML. And by doing that, If your website is ADA compliant and you're just adding a page, by definition, that page will be ADA compliant. So it's always we always recommend our clients. Again, I know it's not always easy to do it, especially for meetings and minutes and so on. But wherever possible, move out of HTML PDFs and have the information in a proper page so that it can be easily read by screen readers and by people on mobile devices. We talked about videos. Live stream meetings should have real-time captioning when requested. Charts and tables, we talked about this earlier. Document remediation. So the good thing is Adobe Acrobat and some of the other tools which you might be using, they can help in making sure that these documents that you produce are ADA compliant. Some of the common failures, missing alt tags. You add images, but you forget to say what that image is about. Also, for example, a classic case is when you add images of staff or your board members. It's very important to make sure you have an alt tag which says who is that person. And that helps screen. So a screen reader may not be able to see the person, but at least they know that this is an image of the mayor, or this is the image of a council member, and this is the name of the council member whose image is there, versus trying to guess, what that image is and who it is. Contrast ratios, contrast in colors, and again, very important because again, it's not just people who are there are many more people than we generally think who have some kind of visual disability. So they may not be blind; they can see, but they are. It's not easy for them to differentiate colors. So color contrast is really important and something that occasionally gets overlooked. Non-keyboard accessible menus and forms. Again, menus, we talked about how it's important to make sure that again, this is not something you can do. This is something your vendor, whoever designs your website, has to do. Again, it's important to differentiate here that some of these things you can do as administrators of your website, as editors of your website, as editors of the pages that you manage and you're responsible for. And some of this responsibility is on your vendor, whoever you have asked to build your website. So for example, this non-keyboard accessible menus and forms, inaccessible forms, the next one, and even the next one, unlabeled buttons. These are all things which will fall under the responsibility of your vendor or whoever is helping you to make sure your website is ADA compliant. And the last point here is, again, something which gets overlooked. We are very, and we are all, do this all the time, that on your website, you have a paragraph of information and then you have a read more button. Now, again, you and me can relate the text to the read more, and we know that this read more is about what is written here. But for a screen reader, it doesn't know, when it says click here, it doesn't know click here for what, right? So the correct way of doing that is it should say read here to find out more about us, or read here to know about us. A bit more, maybe a couple more words in addition to just read more or just click here. So it could be click here to get this form, or click here to access the form, or something. Again, visually it may not look as good as a small nice click more button here. So there are ways, if you have which I mentioned earlier. So the other option is to put area labels, where again you probably may have to work with your vendor or your website developer to do it, but at the end of the day it should either be a proper button which has the description, or it should have an area button behind it which has more information than the visual button. So again, so what falls under you is that, what's your responsibility? So all public services and information must be accessible regardless of the delivery method. You have to regularly review and remediate the content. As I said, it's not a one-time exercise. It's an ongoing thing. There's definitely a one-time catch-up to make sure, you make it compliant, and then review it regularly. There are a lot of tools available, and unfortunately, there's no one tool. There's no magic wand. There are many. Maybe there will be in a few months. AI is advancing fast, so maybe we'll get there. But as of now, there are multiple tools. They all give slightly different results. There's some common things it'll find. There'll be some new things it finds, and also, unfortunately, there are a lot of false positives that it also finds. So it's important to understand, the concepts before just using these tools. And again, manual testing is really important because, as I said, not all these tools catch all the 55 different parameters. They'll tell you right away. For example, if you use Lighthouse, Google Lighthouse, which is one of the very popular tools, and it's very easy to use. You can just use it in your browser. It's pre-installed with your Chrome browser. You just need to enable it, and it'll show you the results. But again, it doesn't cover all 55. It'll tell you that there are around 20 parameters which you need to visually, manually, test it out. What you need to make sure is that any new contracts that you get into, right? Any new software that you purchase, you need to make sure that you include accessibility as one of the requirements, right? And I'm sure some of you are already doing it, but if you're not, just make sure that going forward, every software vendor that you deal with has accessibility and ADA as one of the things that they ensure. It's important to maintain an accessibility statement on your website. I'll give you, I'll just step out from this presentation and give you an example or two. So let me, so for example, here again, can you see my screen? Okay, so this is a City of Vancouver website, a nice website. Here at the bottom, they have accessibility, right? So which talks about, again, a pretty detailed one, which is why I wanted to show this as an example. It talks about, accessibility. It talks about access statements and, digital accessibility. So if you go in further, it talks about, how they, what they follow, what the city is doing. And most importantly, there should be a contact information, right? Very important that if you need more information about disability, this is the person. They only have an ADA coordinator in their staff, and then you can, more information about it and so on. Also, very important to have a place where you can file a complaint. So if somebody finds an ADA issue on your website, you need to have a way for them to let you know before they think of filing a complaint. You need to be able to let them file a complaint with you before they file with, or if they think of, before they think of doing it somebody else. Again, this is another example. St. Johns County in Florida. Again, if you go to their site here, right at the bottom, they have accessibility. Again, if you click on that, it talks to you about accessibility, request accommodation, and again, most importantly, report a complaint, right? So if you have a complaint, there is a way to email the coordinator or file a complaint with them and so on. Okay, so very important to make sure you have your ADA information right front and center, easily accessible to your audience. Okay. So yeah, it should be embedded in your web governance, content publishing workflow. Okay, some exceptions. Okay, again, from a federal standing point of view. Again, as a best practice, obviously, you need to make sure your site is as ADA compliant as possible. But the federal guidelines, which I talked about, which go into effect next year, give you some leeway. Okay, first is archive web content, which means that things which are your board meetings and agendas, maybe for last year or for the last few years, is not going to change. So you can classify that as an archived content and say this content. And again, if you want to go one step further, maybe even change the name of the page and say archived web meetings. Those won't change. The guidelines allow you to keep them as non-ADA compliant, because again, it's going to be a heavy lift if you have a lot of PDFs, if you have a lot of files dating back last 10 years, last 15 years on your website. Making sure all of them ADA compliant is going to take a lot of time and effort and cost. So it allows you to just mark that as archive content, and it should meet these 4 criteria. Again, I'll share these deck with you so you'll have this in here. You can also find it online. Pre-existing electronic media. So again, documents, presentations, PDF files from past are there. And then here you'll see content posted by third party. So this is where your social media comes in, right? And then point number 5 is also about pre-existing social media posts, or if they're documents which are password protected. So those you can say are password protected. They're for a select audience. Maybe it's for your staff. Maybe it's for your, a select group of audience. Those need not be ADA compliant. So there are some of these, uh, you know, uh, areas where there are exceptions, and I think that it's important to understand them so you know where to focus your efforts going forward. Again, most of these are also related to past, right? It's important to make sure that going forward, or at least from the day the guidelines go into effect, which is 27 or 26, from there on, everything should be ADA compliant where possible, except social media, except third party, where ownership is not on you, it's on somebody else who you have outsourced your content to. Again, risks, I'm sure you guys are probably more aware of these. DOJ has prioritized this, digital accessibility, and In California, we've already seen multiple cases where there have been cases. Some of the cities, counties have been sued. I won't go into those here. I'm sure you can find all that online. But more importantly, settlements require it's a lot of cost. There's a lot of effort that goes in. It's far less costly to make sure you're compliant than expose yourself to some of those legal issues, and more importantly, your trust and your reputation is at stake. So it's very important to make sure you take these. Again, till recently they were not mandated. They were good to have, and I know many some of your organizations probably have already done that, and we know a lot of our clients who've already been doing that, but important to now take it even more seriously. Okay. Any questions before we move on to the next topic, which is Brown Act? All right. Again, we can always come back to questions later. So we talked about ADA. Let's talk about Brown Act. Brown Act has been around for even longer. It's been around since 1953. Um, the objective is to ensure transparency in local government decision making, right? So it's really about your meetings, meetings of legislative bodies, which have to be open to the public. It applies to city councils, commissions, committees, boards, and advisory bodies. Probably applies to, again, I'm not a legal expert, but I think it probably applies to uh, most of you, if not all of you. But again, I'm assuming here it applies to you. So public must be given reasonable notice and opportunity to participate. And here I've pasted the actual law from the DOJ, from the California Department website. But more importantly, is there have been some changes in this in the last few years, and that's related to the website. So there was AB 392 passed in 2011, which mandates that agendas must be posted online at least 72 hours before regular meetings and 24 hours before special meetings. Again, it's been around for 14 years now, so I'm sure if it applies to you, somebody has told you, and you guys are doing it. There was a more recent one which has come effect in 2019, and we still see a lot of our a lot of agencies not following it. I'm not sure, but again, it's something which is already there, and we would strongly recommend you doing it. So what it says is that a link to the most recent agenda should be on the homepage of your website. So it specifically says that, and also it says that the agenda should be searchable, machine readable, and platform independent, which really means is that it should be ADA accessible, right? Which again means that, as I said earlier, HTML is preferred because HTML is easily machine readable. HTML is easily searchable. PDFs are not that easily searchable by many search engines. So for example, if you have an agenda item in a meeting and it's in a PDF, it's rare that Google will find it. But if you have that on a web page, Google will find it again, might take some time for it to index and so on, but web pages are easily indexed, easily findable. PDFs are not. Again, also ensure agendas work on mobile devices, which again means HTML is preferred. It's easy to read HTML page. By HTML, I mean, for those who probably not know from a technical, it's really a web page that you see, something you can browse without having to open it in a PDF or something. And agendas and documents should remain online for public access after the meeting. So it's not just before, it has to remain there. And again, different counties or different agencies have different guidelines, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or 10, whatever. So again, that's for your county to decide, but it should be there. It should not be, it's not a one-time thing, posting it and taking it away. Supplemental information must also be posted and distributed. Again, I'll show you an example of this here with one of our sites that we work with. So I'll show you an example of city of Sebastopol. Okay. So here, what we did for them is that though they have all this information here, you can go in here, you can see the meeting calendar, you can see the board meetings. But in addition to that, we added a button here, which is the current city council meeting agenda. And this is automatically populated. So if I click on it now, they have a meeting coming up in more than a week, so they haven't put the agenda. So if you see, it doesn't have an agenda here yet. So which is why when I click here, it takes me to the meeting. But once they post the agenda, if I click this, it'll automatically open the agenda, right? And that's what Brown Act says, that a link to the agenda. It doesn't say a link to the meeting. It says a link to the agenda should be on the homepage. Okay. Some of our clients post it manually, right? You have a place on the website on the homepage where every time there's a new meeting, just make sure a link to that agenda is on the homepage. But again, it can be done automatically if you have the right software to do it. Okay. And again, posting location must be clearly designated and reliable. That's more for offline posting, which again, I'm sure you guys must be following that. Accessible public meetings, live and recorded meetings must be captioned. And interpretation is when requested, so it's not mandatory, but captioning is something which is going to be mandatory. Um, Offering ASL, card captioning, assistant listening systems for in-person attendees. Ensure that again, most importantly is ensure that these are compatible with screen readers, which really means, again, if you use things like Zoom or Teams or Livestream, they already have that available as part of their software. So they have made sure that their systems have keyboard support and they have tools which are screen reader compatible. But if you're using something else, you need to make sure, you need to ask your vendor and make sure that software is compliant from ADA perspective. Um, and again, there are some more things which have been announced as part of this, which I'll come to in a minute. But some of the essentials, again, these are some best practices which we recommend. Designated digital accessibility coordinator, included some ADA duties, implement a digital accessibility policy, which we saw earlier, embedded into your workflow, conduct regular audits, train staff. Again, training is really important to make sure that there's awareness. And again, as I said, not everything is within your control. There's some things which your software provider has to do, but it's important to be aware and to have tools where you can check on how they're doing. And important to include accessibility in RFPs, purchasing policies for any kind of software that you purchase. And from a Brown Act compliance perspective, again, HTML first should be your approach. One trick that we recommend, and again, a lot of people recommend, is having separate agenda and meeting packets. Because again, if you think about, if you read it, the Brown Act talks about meeting agenda. It does not talk about the packet, right? So sometimes it helps to just have the agenda out there, published, have it in HTML format, have it accessible, have it linked on your website. The supporting documents and the meeting packets can be a separate set, which you may need more time. You may need, you may link them separately, keep adding to that, but have an agenda which is published 72 hours before and is linked on the website. And once you have those two things done, you have the Brown Act, that aspect of it taken care of. Okay, we talked about captioning before. Important to choose the right video platform and CMS. CMS is really a content management system. So again, what is really important is, you guys have other jobs to do, you have other things to do. So obviously ADA is the last thing you want to worry about. The good thing is there are a lot of tools available. So what you need to do as an organization is make sure that your content management system, the CMS here, is has those tools for you, so that when you go and add a new page, when you go and add a new image, when you go and add a new meeting agenda, it does most of these things automatically for you or prompts you to do. So if you add an image, it prompts you to say, hey, can you describe this image? And you do it. If you post an agenda, if you create a form, it automatically makes sure that the labels are there, the buttons are correct. And you add a new page, it automatically makes sure that the color contrasts are all right. So it's very important to make sure that you have your platforms. And again, video, if you add a video, it automatically adds those captions. And again, there are tools there. YouTube does it, Vimeo does it. So it's important to make sure you select the right tools and right resource, right set of tools that you use for your work, so that your responsibilities are there, but you don't need to worry about it, right? And it's really about integrating these tools into your workflow and consider adding an accessibility checklist. So you should be more looking at a checklist and checking off things rather than doing these and ensuring it on every page, right? And again, one thing which you may want to consider at some point is actually engaging with some of the, as I said, the best way to test it is manual. And again, there are you probably have some interest groups who may have people who use screen readers. So it might be a good idea to engage them, once in a while, to get them to review some of the new content that you may have added and get an opinion if they think if they can read it, or get some feedback from them to see if their screen readers are able to read the content that you're adding on your website. Um, Again, talked about violations. Again, the important thing here is that from a legal perspective, violation of Brown Act can actually void actions taken at a meeting, which is really serious. I mean, again, you spend all the time, for the meeting and take decisions, but if there are interest groups who complain and file an action, and again, I think I've seen a couple of instances of this where organizations had to cancel the meeting because they were not able to publish the agenda in time. And there was and again, I'm sure you guys have more experience in all this, but I won't go in there. But again, it's important to make sure that you have, and it's easy. It's not that difficult. If you have the right tools, it's not that difficult to follow some of these best practices and compliance requirements that are set in here. Tools and resources. Again, there are a lot of accessibility tools. Chrome Lighthouse, my favorite. It's there as part of your Chrome. You don't need to pay for it. You just, just a little bit of training probably, and you can start using it. Wave is another one, which is free. Again, these are both are free. Adobe Acrobat Pro is the one to go if you really want, if you have a lot of PDFs that you prepare, that you generate. Testing is important. Again, include real users where possible, right? But again, as a editor, I think, as I said, your job should be more of making sure you have the right tools so they do the job for you, and then occasionally audit it to make sure nothing's wrong here. There are some websites which talk about more of this Section 508, ADA, Brown Act Guide, and League of Cities website has some information and some training. And important to make sure the vendors you select have demonstrated their understanding of ADA and have that in their part of their process. And important also to keep up with legislative updates. There's a few more Brown Act updates, AB 361 and AB 2449. I won't go into those here because I'm not a legal expert, but those are things which talk about when you're allowed to have online meetings, when you have to have physical meetings, and so on. And I'm sure your clerk office probably is aware of those. But again, it's a changing landscape, so it's important to make sure that we all keep ourselves informed of the new regulations that may come up in the next few months. Okay. A bit about ourselves. Again, just, this is not a sales pitch, but just telling you how we've, come here. We've worked actually with the Disability Rights California back in 2018, and their website is AAA compliant, which is the highest standard. And it was a challenging project, and I would not encourage any of you to go to AAA because that makes the website very bland. It has really stringent contrast requirements, which means you can't use any colors, or you can't, very limited to what you can do, what you can't do. But yeah, we worked with them. We got an award. They probably gave us an award for our patience to work with them for those stringent standards. And we have embedded it into our processes. We have a team of certified ADA professionals. We use multiple tools. We have a good understanding of the regulations. And what we have put together is a service which we call as Auto ADA, which really, as I said, you as professionals, as content editors, should be having these tools at your service. And what we offer as a service is we will make sure we keep auditing your site. We'll keep fixing things that are not really compliant as you add more stuff. So we'll keep auditing, we'll keep remediating, we'll keep testing. We have human testers who can test it. We will certify your site and we'll train you. So these are the 5 aspects that we provide as an Auto ADA service to our clients. I'll be happy to discuss more if anybody's interested. But yeah, those are very important to make sure that you have the right tools to conduct to make sure your site remains ADA compliant. I'll open up to questions.
Thank you. That was super informative. I do have a question. What do you recommend for like if we're doing Zoom events or meetings on Zoom and then we post those on our website, like informational workshops. We do that often. What is there like, what do you recommend for doing the captions within the video? Like editing it in post, or is there a way you can do that while you're doing it live? Is there a way to do captions when you're doing it live?
You can use some tools like, for example, YouTube and Vimeo have those features, right? So you can upload a video to YouTube and it'll add those captions for you in there. I think Vimeo does the same. So I would, strongly encourage using some of these platforms which have those things built in.
I'll just add YouTube also lets you edit those captions because sometimes the auto captions are a little off, so you can actually go in and correct them, which is a nice tool.
Any other questions? Let me see the chat.
I don't think she's here. I know, and you may have covered it. I've responded to a few emails while you've been on presenting, but for the most part, Sarah had asked a question, I believe, about the timeline as far as like archiving documents, how long you have to hold on to those on your website. So I know anything we're currently uploading, it needs to have ADA compliance, but how far back do they need to go? I think was her question.
Okay.
Um, to come into compliance there.
Sure. So two things here. One, first part of the question you had was how far they need to go back. That's more of a county level decision as to how far back you want to keep your documents available online.
Okay.
But from an ADA perspective, you do not need to have, technically, any documents that are set as archive do not need to be ADA compliant, right? So which means even today, if you have, because the regulations don't kick in till April 2026 for some of you and 27 for the others. Um, from a technical perspective, even your meetings and agendas and documents till that date don't need to be ADA compliant. You can just say this is archive. I mean, by archive, it means it won't change. And obviously, if a meeting has happened, the agenda is not going to change, right? The packet's not going to change. So technically, you are safe to have everything not compliant till that date, and then from that. But again, it's not a good practice. It's best to get compliant as early as you can. But yeah, for sure, you don't need to worry about the past. Start from now. Make sure everything from now on is ADA compliant as far as PDF goes.
Got it.
Unless, of course, it's a PDF which is changing. So, for example, if you have a form in a PDF, form keeps changing. So, if you have a new version of the form, it has to be ADA compliant. Or if, let's say, it's a document which says these are the best practices that follow, or these are the steps for probation, you're getting something. Those are live documents, so those have to be ADA compliant. But archived don't need to.
And you just can have a section on your website that says like archive documents but if someone requests it, then you do have to bring it up to compliance.
Yes.
Is that
So if
right?
somebody
And
requested, yes.
is there a time frame for like how quickly you have to provide it or anything?
No, I think it's pretty reasonable. So, whatever, there's no timeline set. So it's
Okay.
more of a service perspective, how fast you want to do. But yeah, and again, there are tools available. There are, companies available who can offer that service. Even we offer that to, make a ADA, PDF ADA compliant. But yeah, there are lots of tools available. So it's just that doing it for all your documents is going to be tough. So yeah, I think it should just mark it as archive. If somebody requests it, use one of the tools, make it compliant, provide it to them.
Perfect. Okay. I think that answered her questions that she had last time. So thank you.
Any other questions? And maybe you'll think of something later.
Yeah,
And
feel free to email to Lydia, and I'm sure she'll reach out to us, and we'll be happy
yeah,
to.
and then when I send out the deck, it has your contact
Yes,
info too.
yes,
So if
it has
anyone
my,
wanted to reach out to an
yeah.
actual expert, you guys
The
could do
first slide
that.
has the information here.
Perfect. But yeah, because there's a lot. It's very helpful
Yeah,
knowing
it's a big
are
area,
not
so I wasn't very sure what I should
No,
focus on,
you're
so I
good.
try to keep it a bit broad. So yeah, but this depth of information online. It's important to make sure. Again, my closing point would be just make sure you're aware keep yourself abreast with the changes. Again, not everything is on your plate to make sure you do it, but it's important for you to know that this is the requirement. So you know who you delegate or who you look for to cover that for you.
Well, and that's a big relief to know that we're not responsible for third parties, so like
Yeah.
social media. But if we're already going to be implementing that on
Yeah.
websites and that's a legal thing, we should probably just start doing
Yeah.
our part to make sure we're above board there. And I
Right.
know that several of the counties have started doing that
Right.
on their social media. I've noticed a couple of you guys, your posts recently, like alternate, the caption and the information for the image of that's featured like on Instagram specifically and captions in the videos, and that's fantastic. Hopefully
Right.
the third parties will start doing that a bit more so that we're
Right.
not
And
required.
also, but third party also includes things like, for example, some of you may have certain things embedded on your
I
website.
was
Maybe it's
just going to ask that.
somewhere else. So for that embed, your website is compliant as long as you say, there's again a title there, you say that this embed has this information, right?
Mm.
Then within that, it's for that third party to make sure it's ADA compliant. But again, the buck still stops with you. It's your website, right? So you need to make sure. So I think what you need to do is make sure you ask this third party, whoever's page you're embedding, to give you, to certify to you that yes, our site is ADA compliant. Again, because that third party eventually could still be your county, system. So if it's your county system, it's still the county's responsibility. But if it's, but yeah, technically, that third party needs to be. It's not yours; it's somebody else's feed. But if that is not ADA compliant, you're not liable. But from a service perspective, your audience or your customers will not get the right experience if that is not compliant. But yeah, it's important to check those boxes. Make sure you check with them. Make sure you at least and there's still time. So you could put some. Make sure you could put in a request to them to make sure between now and April they make it compliant, which they should be. Okay.
Any other questions, Steph?
Not that I can recall. I don't know if anyone else has any.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. And as Lydia said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to her or to me direct, and we'll be happy to address.
Perfect. Thank you
Thank
both
you.
for doing that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Good to be with you.
Yeah,
Thank
Have a
I
you.
good rest of your
appreciate
day.
it.
Thank
There were a
you.
lot of questions, so thank you.
Yes,
All right.
Bye-bye.
thank you. And I'm sure once we send out the recording to folks who maybe weren't able to join, if they have questions, I'll forward those over to you. So,
Sure.
but yeah, everyone, thank you so much for joining today. I'm gonna give you guys back like 5 minutes of your time. And I will send out the link to this recording and the deck from Sandeep, and that hopefully will be a helpful tool for you guys to look back on when you need it. So thank you both so much.
Thank
Really
you, everybody.
appreciate it.
Thank you for
All right,
inviting
great.
us. Bye.
Have a good rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Yeah, everyone have a good one. Thank you.